everybody, welcome to Should You Buy It, where we help you decide whether or not a game's worth your time and money. And today we're going to be looking at Starfox Zero for the Wii U. Let's not waste any more time and dive right in. After I get back from Mexico, I'll be right back. Alright, and I'm back. Are people still talking about this game? Fuck it, I don't care. Let's review it anyway. Sorry. I just can't do this.
He don't know quite what to do with his hands.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 69 days since my last confession. These are my sins. My first sin is that I just lied to you telling you it's been 69 days since my last confession. I've never actually been here before. I was just looking for an excuse to use 69 in a sentence, as I always do. But I'm not really sorry about that.
I see, my supple little child. Tell me what else is on your mind.
Well, when I was like 6 or 7, I was playing Sonic 2 in my mom's bedroom, and there was just a giant turd on the ground behind me. I really don't even remember doing it, but I mean, I must have. How else could it have gotten there?
My dear little boy, I sense this story, true or not.
Oh, it's true.
This story is not the reason you're here. Now tell me, what is your real confession?
Well, I'm reviewing the new Starfox game for Wii U, and
Oh, how wonderful this game sounds. Why don't you tell me with those sweet, yet-to-be-tainted young lips of yours what you thought of it?
Well, I've never really cared to get into Starfox games before. I mean, I'm not gonna talk shit about it or anything, but every time I've tried to play one, I play it for like 10 minutes and have a decent time, but I always feel compelled to turn it off and play something else. I didn't even put it in our top 10 Nintendo 64 games list.
If only you had a bearded, wonderfully, extraordinarily handsome friend. He would have put it in the top 10 for sure.
Well, my good bearded buddy Shane actually put it on his version of the list, but in my defense, our other friend Matt voted for Rampage to make the cut. Now that's also true.
You're too much! Rampage?
But seriously, Father, I feel awful. I've been waiting to play this game for a long time, but just like the rest of the series, I kinda want to turn it off after 10 minutes and play something else.
Well, I haven't played the game myself, my sexy boy toy 77, so why don't you tell me more about it?
Well, alright. First things first. It's pretty entertaining to see the opening cutscenes and to watch the story unfold. It's nothing too deep, but it's Starfox, so it's not really supposed to be in the first place. It's simple, to the point, and with the classic Nintendo charm that we all know and love. Well, most of us anyway. The graphics and art style are pretty good, but as soon as the gameplay begins, things start to feel a bit off. So you use the 2 analog sticks to maneuver where you go. Pretty simple, right? But that's where we come across my one big issue with this game, is that to aim you need to use the gyro controls. And for those of you who don't know what gyro controls are, it's basically just fancy talk for motion controls, which was a nice option in Mario Kart 8, but in this game it's mandatory. And I would wager that this restriction was forced by the higher-ups at Nintendo to try to make it seem like this game couldn't have worked without the gamepad. But much like every other game on this console, things would have been just fine with a normal control scheme. It's not that the gyro controls are all that bad, but you constantly need to keep recalibrating it just like you did in Skyward Sword when, again, things would have been just fine with a standard controller and, dare I say, a Wii Remote and Nunchuck. The legacy of the Wii Remote is that it was a lucky gimmick that made Nintendo a lot of money and everybody just wants to forget about it. But not me. Sure, I prefer a standard controller for pretty much every game that exists, but for anything that involves shooting or pointing like Pikmin, Metroid, or Resident Evil 4, then I'll take the Wii Remote Nunchuck combo over a standard controller any day. And since Nintendo hyped that controller as being innovative in the future of controllers back when the Wii came out, then it should have at least been an option here, but sadly, it's not. Unfortunately, we're stuck being forced to use gyro controls and constantly having to recalibrate the crosshair positioning. You only have to press one button, which takes literally less than a second, which is a huge improvement over the recalibration process of Skyward Sword, but it's still an unnatural and unnecessary hassle. I'm open to the gamepad being a part of the game since I love the DS and 3DS's second screens when they display maps, provide quick inventory access, or show statistics of some sort. But having two screens for this game is kind of annoying, especially since you can't see the actual gameplay that's being displayed on the gamepad. Obviously, Nintendo didn't and shouldn't have cared about this, but I like to complain because I'm an asshole, so it's now or never. And by the way, you're best off playing first person with the gamepad since the third person display on the TV is meant more for people to spectate with, which is kind of weird. I don't know, maybe I just suck in third person, I just find it harder to aim. I mean, you do kind of have the option to turn the gyro controls off, but they only stay off for when you're aiming. So there's really no point in that because I don't want them at all, especially while I'm aiming. Come to think of it, I feel like the game would be more comfortable to steer with the gyro controls and to aim with the sticks, but now I'm just talking crazy. I could go on and on even more about why I wish there were more control options, but to be fair, you do get used to them eventually, despite the sensitivity being a little too much for my taste. Other than the somewhat disappointing controls, the gameplay is pretty solid. Blowing shit up's a whole heck of a mess of fun, and I love that the levels are short while also offering replayability by having collectibles and what have you. Although it does get a little repetitive to constantly be having to do somersaults to get tailgating enemies in front of you. But it's not that big of a real issue as it is more of a nitpick. I just find that it gets pretty annoying when I'm trying to catch up to something in free range mode in stages where I'm racing against the clock and constantly having to be wasting time killing enemies behind me since Slippy's too busy fingering his ass to help me out. To focus a little more on positive aspects of the game, you can play in a variety of different vehicles that tickle my fancy quite a bit. Besides the R-Wing, you can also fly around in the Gyro Wing, which is pretty much just a space helicopter. And I think it's just dandy with the ability to drop a miniature robot on the ground for hacking devices and to shoot those hard-to-reach places. You also get the Landmaster, which is pretty much just like the tank in Starfox 64. You can temporarily hover, and for the most part it controls pretty well, but like the rest of the game, the gyro controls make it a pain in the ass from time to time. And last but not least, returning from Star Fox 2, even though Nintendo wouldn't want you to know that, is the Walker, and it bears a little bit of a resemblance to the Shrieker monsters from Tremors 2. It controls similarly to how Tails and Eggman did in Sonic Adventure 2, but don't worry, it's a lot more fun than that. I will say, I appreciate the niftiness of being able to switch back and forth between the R-Wing and Walker, just in case you don't feel like circling around over and over again to kill stationary enemies. But once again, the game attaches an anchor to you, but oddly enough, it's not the gyro controls in this case. My main gripe here is that I constantly find myself doing barrel rolls every time I try to turn like 20 or 30 degrees.
No, no, no! Stop it right now! Why don't you tell me some good things about this game, god damn it!
Well, the box art's the best I've seen in a long time. And if you use the Fox Amiibo, then your vehicles will be in 16 bits with sound effects and all.
What if you use the Falco Amiibo?
I've never gotten the Falco Amiibo because, like I said, I don't really care about Starfox.
How dare you speak such blasphemy about Starfox!
But Father, I'm not trying to talk wet shit about this game. I really do have fun playing it. It's just that it took a long time for it to grow on me and for the mandatory gyroscopic controls not to ruin my experience. I mean, gyro controls on the 3DS would be fine as an option, but even then I'd still prefer the classic control scheme.
Well, answer me this. Should you buy it?
You should buy Starfox Zero if you like games that can be played in short bursts while not feeling like you were ripped off, as the stages offer tons of replayability, and not to mention a bonus physical copy of Starfox Guard, which you can hear more about by clicking here. If you enjoy gyro controls. As much as I didn't like this being a mandatory feature, I think it's a nice novelty and it makes you feel like you're in an arcade or something, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that really enjoy this, as the aiming is pretty accurate if you're used to the sensitivity. And you should buy Starfox Zero if you're a fan of the Starfox series, because who knows when we're gonna get another official entry into the Starfox series. I haven't played the Starfox games on the GameCube or Nintendo DS, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the first game since Starfox 64 that feels like a true successor. Or technically the first, since Starfox 64 was a remake and not a sequel of the original Super Nintendo adventure. But if you loved either of those two games, then you really should pick this up, as it does feel similar to the previous games in the series, at least coming from somebody who considers himself a casual fan of Star Fox. You should not buy Starfox Zero if you just don't care about Star Fox or even own a Wii U. As much as I really did enjoy playing this game, it didn't exactly turn me into a die-hard fan of the Star Fox franchise, and I can patiently wait for the next game in the series. The controls, while I don't prefer them, aren't bad, and I can't stress that enough. I wouldn't exactly call this game broken, but the fact that we're not given an option here when Mario Kart 8 lets us play with the standard controls as well as the gyro controls, it just makes me feel restricted, like I'm in timeout or something. Eventually, I did learn to tolerate it just fine, but these kinds of games aren't something I've always been crazy about in the first place, so even motion controls aside, as much as I did actually enjoy this game, I just can't say it's worth getting a Wii U just to play Starfox Zero, unless you're obsessed with the previous Starfox games.
Well, Father, that's everything I've ever done wrong in my entire life. Do you forgive me?
Well, that all depends. I really like Starfox, almost as much as working with the little boys. Are you truly sorry for blaspheming the Starfox franchise?
Well, no, not really. All I said was it's not one of my favorite franchises.
Well then, damn you to hell, my sweet, supple little boy. Jesus! Hey, Jesus!
Uh-oh! Bo, is that you?
Oh, yeah! Just doing what got me here in the first place.
That's our Bo.